You're listening to the Chasing Tails Outdoor Podcast, where when you can't be in the outdoors, we bring it to you. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Walt, and typically speaking, I'm joined by my co-host, Chase. However, due to Chase being out in the woods, I am flying solo tonight. We're going to have a guest named Nick Chandler. He's going to come on, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a little collaboration here, and we're going to break down both of our most recent hunts. Nick got it done on a really nice deer down in north central Florida. Maybe you'd consider it, South Central. I'll let him decide that in the episode. And I killed a nice buck in early November here on the Panhandle. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of co-interview each other. We're going to discuss what happened between those, have a nice dialogue on what went into those hunts, and then next time Chase will join us back. But this is going to be a really fun time. But before we get to that, I do want to thank the people who helped make this podcast possible. First and foremost, that's our Patreon subscribers. If you don't know what Patreon is, it's a crowdfunding source that we use to offset the operating costs of this podcast, to travel across the country, create content, meet up with people. And if you want to join the podcast, win a chance or be entered in a chance to win some really awesome gear, be a part of a Marco Polo group where we all collaborate and talk to each other, that is the place to do it. So want to say thanks first to Brock Johnson and Dane Ralph. Both you guys joined here recently, and we just want to say thank you for helping support the podcast. You guys have been entered into a giveaway where we are giving away an Alps Outdoor backpack, 2 170 GSM Merino base layers from Scree Gear, and a set of Titan straps to secure all your gear, just as our way of saying thanks. So if you're already a Patreon member, you're entered in that giveaway and all the other giveaways that we do. If you're not and you want to support the show and win some free gear, maybe get a hat, then go to patreon.com/Chasing Tails Outdoors. The link is also in the show notes. We'd love to have you. Also, I want to give some love to Tethered. They have been the title sponsor of this podcast all year long, and we've been using their gear for years now, and we've done it with, we enjoy the heck out of working with them, hunting with them across the country. Their product makes us better hunters, so thanks to Tethered for putting this show on the air. And lastly, you've heard us talk a lot about Scree. If you want to save money on your order of Scree gear, you're interested, you heard about it on the show, use the promo code CHASINGTAILS, TALES, either all caps or all lowercase, and you can save a little bit of money on your next order. With that, we're going to keep this short and sweet to the point. Introducing Nick. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have returned guest Nick Chandler. You know him probably as Heart of Florida Outdoors. Dude, you've been running around all over town today just so you could be on the podcast getting stuff, and we ultimately resorted to just using the phone because for some reason your audio quality is next level good on just your cell phone. So appreciate all the effort.
Oh, man, appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, anytime I can get to talk to a native Floridian about Florida hunting, it's always a good thing because Florida is just a different animal. Guys, you've heard us talk about this before. The hunting apparatus, the quota system, which is what you were on to talk about the last time, it's a different animal. It's a little frustrating. I think we get more questions from people out of the state of Florida than we get anywhere else in the country. And actually, I'll just go ahead and say we flat out do. I get pictures from people, screenshots, and I'm thinking about putting in here, and I'm thinking about going and doing this. What do you think? I can't get on deer. Well, we're about to talk about two people in different parts of the state hunting different parts of, different types of environments and situations, and it played out quite well for both of us. I'm not upset with my deer. Are you?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. It was one of those seasons where it just seems like everything was against you.
Sure.
And for it to come out empty-handed would have been one thing, but for anything, here in Florida, I'm very happy with how it turned out.
It's funny to me because when we sat, so the first time you were on the podcast, this is actually your third time on the podcast.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because we had the saddle event where we recorded one with you, Craig, and Adam and Chase, and then we had you on to talk about the quota system, and now here we are bringing it full circle. How about that, dude? That's a hat trick.
Man, I'm telling you, I'm just I'm blessed. We're
gonna bestow the contributor title to
There you go.
Our Florida today. We're cutting to Nick Chandler down in Florida. He's our Florida contributor. Nick, how's the weather down there?
There you go. Hey, I'm more than happy to come on, man. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no, for sure, for sure. It's always a joy. But I think going back to what I was trying to lead into is if you had told me back in, oh heck, it had to be like June, July when we did that saddle event, whatever that was, that
Hmm.
I would have shot a buck and a doe, well, a buck in general, before you and Chase, I would have called you nuts. But somehow I managed to have like the opposite season from you guys, and I think that was just the deer gods messing with me.
Yes. Well, no, it could have been a lot of tactic involved, man. I'm sure it was. I
Well,
know it was the deer gods messing with me. I could tell you that much.
maybe that's what I should have said is the deer gods are messing with you and Chase by letting somebody like me get a deer before you guys.
Oh no, man. No, you put a lot of effort into it, man. You got to give
Yeah.
yourself some credit there.
Well, and honestly, that is the truth. I think sometimes there's a lot. Let's be honest. A lot of time there's a lot of luck involved. But
Oh yeah.
Thomas Jefferson once said, "I'm a great believer in luck, I find that the harder that I work, the more of it I have." So it's just one of those things where you put time in the woods, you spend time there, and you reap the benefit. And I know that the place that you shot your deer, you have a lot of history hunting that piece of property. We're not going to name it, but uh, how long have you been hunting this place?
Since I was really, really young, I really don't know the exact age, but 10, 11, 12, something like that. So that's uh, pushing 20 years, over 15 years, on and off. But yeah, here the past 6 or 7 years, I've hunted it steady, every single year, just about every single hunt. So that's key to really getting to know an area.
Oh
But I know
yeah,
it's hard to do with the quota system to get, which is one of the things we talked about before about ways to try to get in there more. The more you can get in there, the more you learn the place, the more you can catch on to the deer patterns and deer movements throughout these hunts. Get you in better situations for sure.
absolutely. And I think before we hit record, I think you actually said there wasn't a whole lot of tactic that went into it. I would argue there probably was because you've got, let's just call it what it is, a lifetime worth of experience with this property. So you
Hmm.
didn't just pick a spot on the map. You had
Right.
to know that this place was good. What kind of led to you knowing what did that growth look like for you, knowing that was a good spot?
Just basically years and years of hunting there, learning bedding areas, doe bedding areas where the bucks travel through during the rut, which times a year. When this type of sign starts showing up in said area, where to be set up to catch them cruising through and just stuff like that. And talking to people who, getting to know more and more people out there and kind of communicate with people that hunt that general area. Hey, how many deer did you see? What did you see? What was he doing? Just to kind of get a better idea on what exactly is going on at that time. That really helps too, getting to know a lot of people around there. You get a lot of intel, and that's what I do a lot of time when I'm sitting in the tree. I'm contacting anybody and everybody that I know that's out there just to try to help, not just help me, but help everybody. Hey, this is what I seen. What did you see? It really makes a big difference. Just to get it's basically more than just one set of eyes. You're pretty much covering the whole area with everybody that's around, and that can help you just kind of jump around. So and so seen this going here. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
that makes a big difference there. I don't know if I got off topic. I
No, I
probably
think
did.
I think you hit it great. So let's talk about kind of break this down a little bit. What was the habitat itself? Is it pine flats? Is it swamps? Kind of break down what this general area kind of lays out and why you think these areas were bedding areas specifically. Outside of the
Okay.
fact that there were probably deer beds there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's always been an area where does are, always bedded in these particular areas. It's more open. Like, I'm trying to guess. It's like more or less like flag pond type areas. There's a little bit of standing water here and there. It's considered lake beds on the map. Got to be careful giving too much
Oh
information
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. Be vague with
Um,
it.
yeah. But it's just more or less open areas that's tall enough for the deer to move through.
Okay.
But you can kind of get to a certain elevation that you can see down in a lot of the stuff and catch them through little openings here and there. A lot of marshy type stuff with oak hammocks kind of intertwining in between, little fingers coming in and out. And um, just a lot of years of watching where you normally see, movement where deer normally are out to cross, or where they're, you always jump them up, bedded down, or where you normally see them go out there and bed down or get up from being, a lot of times they'll bed down in a lot of these more open areas at night. And as the sun comes up, they'll just kind of bloop, bloop, just stand up
Right.
and kind of go off into like a day bedding area where they're safer, which can change. Their movements change depending on who's hunting where and which way the wind's blowing. They might smell somebody and get up before daylight. They might, smell somebody and stay put where they're not seen out there in the taller stuff. That a lot of people would expect to see a full deer's body walking through there. No, you might see the top of a ear or horns. That's about it. I mean, it's a lot taller, so they're able to just kind of meander around out there, and they know the spots too. So it's just a matter of, like you said, a lot of luck goes into it. But if you know those particular areas, you sit around and be persistent enough, it's bound to happen. That's
Yeah, and I think luck. I think I want to be careful how we define luck, because I don't want people to think that, I'm just saying you need to put in a bunch of time in the woods and eventually it'll happen. The luck that you experienced happened to be the fact that the deer chose to be in that spot, and it sounds like you've identified an area that is kind of like a transitionary bedding area, kind of like a staging area for them in the evenings, which is interesting because I kind of feel like that's similar to what I had here in Florida. I mean, if you look at the video that's on YouTube, you can see that I'm in this like open swamp bottom, but I don't think I'm actually in bedding. I'm on this
right.
ridge that has dense enough cover that these deer are out there lingering. They're hanging out. It's a place where they can, have that good dense cover to feel like they're hiding in, but they can also see a good ways. And it sounds like where you're at, it's not so much the sight, but I bet you there's pretty predictable wind out there in that grass.
Yeah, for the most part, there is very predictable.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't have near as much of trees and stuff like that. That's going to deteriorate the wind to go one direction or other, swirl here, swirl there. It's pretty much, like you said, just like a steady wind. If the wind's kicking one way, it's going to stay that way. So it's a little bit easier to kind of play the wind in that situation
sure.
for the most part. It's particularly better in the mornings. I usually don't see a whole lot going on in the evenings, but most of the time, this particular spot's kind of a little bit of a valley where it kind of dips down. There's a little bit of a ridge, and the bucks will usually cruise that ridge in the morning. Now I know it's not much of a ridge here, but what
Yeah,
I consider
yeah.
a ridge in our part of town. But I almost think the thermals might play a role in that, where maybe it's pulling, down in the bedding where the does and stuff normally would bed up. It's pulling that up. The bucks kind of cruise that ridge.
Sure.
I have no idea. Might just be where they particularly cruise through to catch on a doe's trail. I don't know, but it all kind of lines up with that whole thermal situation.
Yeah, and I think this area probably plays out pretty similarly where I was hunting, because like a dummy. So I've kind of had this growth period that I've talked about a lot on the show, which is I didn't use trail cameras because they were expensive and I didn't want to put money into those. And then I
Mm-hmm.
realized that was really dumb. That's up there with choosing to be bow only in this state, which is I will I will attest is a really dumb way of going about life as well. But or at least one of the dumb things I've done. But I did put a trail camera in this area for a long soak. The only thing I didn't do was set the freaking time and date. I was just like, I just want pictures. I want to know it's there. Well, then I got a lot of really nice photos, but I don't know anything. Well, no, I did set the date. I didn't set the year. That's what it was. I knew what day it was, but I don't know what time of day it is. But
Right.
having hunted it, I then was able to notice that I saw deer only in the mornings.
Yes.
Three or four sits in. Actually, this is like the fifth time I've hunted this area. I've only seen deer in the mornings, and I think there are areas that you can key in on that are good. I've always heard people say it. Well, that's a good evening spot. That's a good morning spot. It starts to
Mm-hmm.
make sense once you find one of those areas and you start to kind of piece the puzzle together per se.
Most definitely. Most definitely. There's a lot of times in this particular area we'll hunt specific spots in the mornings, and then, the deer kind of move out, and then as they kind of creep back in another area, just kind of switch it up for the evenings is what we generally do, and usually see a lot more deer get up on top of them a little bit better.
Do you run cameras in this area outside of when you like the season per se?
This area, yeah, I usually have at least one camera running in like a general hub area that usually majority of bucks in the area that I'll be hunting will kind of pass through at least sometime throughout the off season. I will have one running just about all year round, just to kind of keep up with deer movements and stuff like that. And then as it gets closer to the season, I'll shift it around to like a food source that I can hop onto, just kind of see how daylight movement is in and around this food source for one of the first hunts and stuff like that. Has helped a lot,
Do you
quite a bit.
do you notice that these deer? Okay, let me ask this instead. Do you think that this is a morning spot that they use once hunting pressure occurs, or do you think this is a year-round morning staging area for these deer?
I've done a lot of summertime sitting in this area, quite a bit of, throughout the off season, and it's pretty much the same all year round. It's just, and they seem to have food sources all throughout the year. You got greenbrier with blackberries, you got grapevine in areas. There's just so many food sources, they really don't have to change much. And then the acorns start dropping all around the oak hammocks. They're just kind of going back and forth between oak hammocks and then back to the bedding, and they just don't really have to go a long distance. But yeah, I mean, these particular areas probably are safer. Nobody generally just goes walking out in the middle of briars unless they kill something and have to go out there and get it. But
Yeah, yeah,
they just feel safer away from the human scent. Even though if somebody's on the wood line, some of these places are several hundred yards wide. So, you know, you could be far enough away, they feel safe and just stay out there. But you catch them slipping in the lower stuff.
yeah.
But,
Now, so was there a lot of acorns in your area? Because for me this year,
oh,
yeah. So see, for me this year, there are no acorns in any of the bottoms
really?
that I hunt, but they're still there, which tells me that there's more to this area than just the food source itself. It sounds like you have a bumper crop this year.
Oh, yeah. Just all day long. You're just sitting there raining acorns all day.
Really?
Yeah, especially every little time a squirrel jumps on a branch or the wind just kind of breeze just hits a little bit, just pop, 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 pop,
Yeah.
waiting for a deer to come running in.
That's cool. It's interesting. The area that I hunt, this little niche area on the Panhandle, I've found that acorns are kind of scarce in this area. Like I don't know if I've got a
Hmm.
bunch of like defunct trees, but
Mm-hmm.
dude, honestly, year in year out, this will be the third, maybe the fourth year I've hunted this area. Out of those
Mm-hmm.
4 years, only 1 year have there been acorns dropping.
Really?
Yeah, even the live oaks. I mean, it seems like this area underproduces greatly, and I think it may contribute a bit to how difficult it is to pattern deer in this area because
Yeah.
my buddy sends me a photo the other day and says, "This is the deer we're going after." The next day was the opening of the season. They jump it with dogs a mile away and kill it.
Yeah.
And so those
Yeah.
deer are having to move a huge, huge swath. And it sounds like you found what Craig has called in a previous episode, Craig Kroom, a pocket of deer. That
Mm-hmm.
that pocket that holds them.
Pretty much. Yes. Yeah. Because every time you see a group of does, you count them. It's pretty much the same group, and there'll be a couple does, a couple yearlings, and then maybe a couple 1 year, 2-year-old does or something like that. But you'll have like your two older does, usually one being the lead doe. I'm trying to think of the name for that, but yeah, it's usually pockets of deer, and it's usually the same deer just about, and you'll just have random bucks slipping through, checking,
Sure.
who's coming in heat, who's
Yeah. I mean, they come through there and they're checking that bedding area. It makes sense. I
hmm
mean, that is a tried and true tactic anywhere you go. I think a lot of people in Florida struggle to find those areas. Um,
hmm
So let's talk about this. What does a good buck in that area look like? Like if you were to tell me, Walter, here's my stand, here's where we're going, and I say, okay, what am I going in there as a minimum to shoot? What's cruising through that area for you?
it'd be easy to go in there and kill a legal buck, so a 2-year-old. But you get 2 or 3 hunts, you're bound to see at least one or two, maybe one or two 3-year-olds cruise through. Whether or not you'll get a shot at them is a different story. You got to pretty much be ready, because if they hit an opening, you got to get on them and wait for the next opening, or else they're gone. But you're talking uh, Yeah, a good 50, 60-inch deer
Right.
would be pretty frequent. The big boys know they they don't seem to just strangle on through there like the rest of them. But every once in a while, you'll catch one being dumb, slipping in there after a doe to bed down with them, or was bedded with them, getting up to meander off with them. But yeah, usually one or two a year, one or two good ones a year. And that's actually pretty much the same pocket, but just just a little bit around the corner where I shot the one during archery, the pretty good one that wasn't able to find this year.
I got you. So it sounds like a little bit bigger than what I shot would be kind of what's to be expected in that area. So I mean, honestly, pretty good deer.
Usually, yeah,
Yeah.
if you're patient enough and you don't, yeah, exactly, yeah, something about like that. That's which is a dang good deer for around here.
Shoot. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead.
no, so I was just saying when you sit there, you don't see a whole lot, and it could be tough to let those little 6 points walk, but eventually one's going to come by. I think out of all year, I had two shooters not actually shooters, two that I would have shot come by.
Right.
It's tough to watch them, but that's what it takes. You shoot one of those, then not only your permits, you're tagged out.
That's the thing I think a lot of people need to recognize is like I had a couple people reach out to me and I'm glad they reached out instead of like, making a comment. But they were like, "Hey, is that really a good deer for your area?" Talking about my buck. And I'm like, "Yeah, man. I mean, like that's
Mm-hmm.
first and last tag for me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm pulling the trigger on that animal first and last tag and I think people need to recognize that 50, 60 inches mainly on public in Florida with very rare exceptions, that you really ought to shoot that deer.
Oh yeah, for sure. You're not just going to have them walking by all day long. I mean, unless you're getting way back in some remote location that them deer just really don't have any idea what a human is. There are areas that I know that you can get back in there and get on top of bucks like that and just you can let them walk like it isn't nothing, but there's a lot more involved to that. But, in this particular area, yeah, I mean, you got a 50, 60-inch buck come by, especially archer time, it's going down more than likely if it's within range and the camera's rolling. I mean, I'm not going to hesitate.
Yeah, yeah,
Not
no,
at all.
for sure. You throw that camera on there, and then suddenly it's a totally different situation.
Oh yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, you're talking about a totally different set of conditions and how you're gonna hold yourself to things. But I
Hmm.
I think I think a lot of people would be probably upset. Actually, a lot of people are upset because of how many people go to Georgia about the quality of deer here. But if you just frame it in context, it's kind of I kind of look at it as like a subspecies of deer. It's
Oh
it's
yeah, for
it's
sure.
it's like shooting a Keys deer or something. You just
Yeah,
except legal. Um,
exactly. Exactly.
so what were kind of the conditions that you were going? Let's kind of dive into the hunt because for me, it was crappy, super crappy conditions. It was highs in the low 80s, lows in the low 70s. Very very breezy. The deer were moving very briefly in the morning, and that was kind of like the extent of their movement. Whereas I think if it was colder, I would actually kind of caught them coming through this area. I kind of came in behind these deer and were able to call them out of a bedding area that I think was not far from me. What were the circumstances that you kind of faced going into that hunt?
Man, it was a lot of the same.
Okay.
It was slightly breezy. It was a little warmer. Yeah, I want to say it was pretty warm last. I'm trying to remember the dates, but yeah, it was very warm that particular weekend. They were not moving a whole lot in the middle of the day. It was mainly just a lot of morning movement that was pretty much had a lot to do with the moon. The moon just had, I mean, to me, coming from one weekend to the other, they just they had it was a lot of morning movement, and right at dusk we were seeing some movement, but it was mainly mornings, but just not a lot, not crazy. But the chasing did really pick up that last 8 or 9 days. Not all these days you're able to hunt. I'm just going off of camera, and just from what everybody else was seeing. From the end of one quota hunt to the next, chasing really started to pick back up. I don't know if it's post rut or what, or anyways. Usually it's about post rut in that area, but we seemed to there was a lot more deer going down than the main rut. There was a lot more chasing being seen later this year than earlier than as the normal rut time, main rut times. So I'm not sure if that was due to the weather, moon, whatever. But yeah, it was pretty much the same conditions.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it kind of. I mean, to be honest with you, that's kind of Florida in November. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not the cold fronts that everybody really looks to. The cold fronts that everybody's like, oh well, I can't wait for X, Y, and Z to come rolling through because then that's going to pick up X, Y, and Z. It just doesn't
Hmm.
really happen. You kind of have to. I don't want to say you have to force it, but like you have to acknowledge that these deer are used to that heat and they're going to do their rutting thing otherwise. If you manage to get a cold front, it's kind of like icing on the cake.
Right, right. Yeah, and it goes along with these quota hunts. You don't choose the dates. The dates are chosen. You draw what you draw. You got to go make the best of that 3 days or 4 days or whatever it is. You know, it doesn't really matter. It could be crappy conditions, but they're gonna get up and move eventually. You just got to figure out where they're moving. Sometimes you do. Most of the time you don't.
Kind of tell everybody what happened. I mean, take it story time wise and tell us a tale.
Well, I guess I can start off in this particular area. It has several hunts, a couple archery, a couple muzzleload, a couple gun hunts, and I hunted it every single hunt all the way back from the archery season, and I was pretty much hunting in and around the same area. Had a good encounter during archery on a really nice buck. I want to say 100 inches or better, but the thing, I mean, it all happened so quick. He came in, and I only had a matter of seconds to pick up my bow, shoot, and he was gone. No idea what happened. He turned when the bow went off. He kind of like tucked and rolled type deal. Not even sure where the arrow landed. Never did find the arrow. Found blood, no deer. Searched and searched and searched. I mean, just put in a lot of footwork. Never did find it, unfortunately. So I just kind of hunted in and around that same area, just trying to get eyes. And it just kills me when that happens. I hate it. And just trying to get back on it. Put up cameras to see if get pictures of them. Never did, and I really ain't 100% sure which deer it is, to be honest, because I didn't have enough time to identify it. I just seen rack size and tines, and
Sure.
it was it. Well beyond legal. So anyway, so I just, like I said, just kind of bounce around this area and just putting in time, man, and just trying to be and just going off of intel from everybody else, you know, what seems to be hot. They're checking all these food sources that I normally see them keying in on certain times a year. They go from, once that acorns drop, they're over here on these type of acorns, and then seem to be hitting water oaks these last couple weekends pretty hard. Then they'll try to kind of transition over to grapevines. It seems like around this time of year too. But yeah, I just hit up this certain area that's always been good, and just put in several hours, and eventually I think it was within the last 10 minutes of the very last day on the very last hunt, it paid off. Persistence paid off. It was about a 200-yard shot. I mean, I'm sitting there aggravated, and then just thinking of any kind of way to make something happen. I just pulled out my grunt, and I pulled out my bleed can, and I sat there hitting them back and forth. I mean, I don't. I said I'm either going to call something up or scare everything away. And I mean, and I look up, and there's one standing about 200 yards, and with his head down. I don't know if he was trailing. I don't know what he was doing, but I'm like, oh, there's a doe. I had a doe permit. I was like, maybe I'll get me a doe. I drop the gun on it, and it pulls his head up, and I'll be dang if it wasn't a good buck. So I mean, I'm not sure 100% if he was coming to the calls, but I'm just going to act like he was. It sounds a lot better anyway.
Well, I think if you bill it as in I called him in versus I just kept making calls until something eventually showed up, I think that's a better title.
Exactly.
Nick Chandler calls in a big Florida buck versus Nick Chandler eventually had a deer walk past him while calling.
Exactly. I didn't give him the time of day to try to figure out what he was doing exactly. I mean, he was about to be out of a shot window out there, and made it happen. I know, as you've seen in the polos, I was pretty much thinking he was a lot bigger than he was, but sometimes them angles, when it comes to them horns, man, on them Florida deer, they can fool you. They can fool you big time.
Yeah.
He was 129 pounds. Wasn't exactly a small deer, but he was just giving me his best angles, and I swear it was well over 100 when I shot him. I'm thinking, oh man, which don't get me wrong, by no means, I'm very happy for what he is. I'm glad. I still wouldn't have hesitated for what he is. But that's pretty much it as far as that hunt goes.
It's funny. You had ground shrinkage. I had the opposite, and I think to a certain extent it was because what are your restrictions on that piece of property? If it doesn't give it away, what were the restrictions for what was a legal buck?
3 on one side, 10-inch main beam.
Okay. So mine was 2 on one side with a 10-inch main beam, I believe. And so no, I think mine was 3. I think you're right. I think it was 3.
You said that was zone, right?
Yes, possibly.
Okay.
Maybe.
I don't know if that
We're gonna cut this piece out
or not.
Because
yeah,
I posted an Onyx screenshot, and somebody was like, "Dude, it's pretty easy to find if you know the area." So
yeah, Sometimes I guess I just forget. I seem to think we're just having a general conversation.
Yeah, no, it's all good. That's what the mute button's for. But everybody's gonna hear zone blip. Like
yeah, making you work harder and edit it. My bad.
Yeah. I mean, if they wanted to work hard enough, they could, 3 on one side, 10-inch main beam. They can kind of do the math and figure it out. But anyways, the whole time he had really nice main beams, and he's a great deer, first and last tag. I mean, I'm not trying to downplay this deer at all, but he's coming in big body on him. I bet you he was probably 115, 120 pounds. I mean, he was good sized deer, I can hear our Ohio and Wisconsin listeners laughing right now because that's the size of like their yearlings. But,
that's a stud down here. Come on now.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, first and last tag, and I have 5 tags. But they're coming, so I grunted, this deer comes through, and as he's coming through the tree line, I'm desperately trying to get the knockers on him and get video. So, I've got this little it's a 12 by 60 millimeter, which is like a 24 by 120 equivalent. So I'm not going to get like zoomed in on his eyeballs. I zoom it all the way in. I got it framed up, and he's going to be in the frame for like 4 or 5 seconds. So I've got knockers on him, and every time he'd pick his head up, he'd have something in front of him, and I couldn't see what his head was, but I would catch his main beams as he was walking. I'm like, God, he's got to be a big enough deer. Like, he looks like he's big enough. And at one point at about 70 yards, he picks his head up, and as he's walking, I can kind of glimpse him through the trees, and I'm like, okay, I am fairly certain I see 2 on each side. So this is what we're going to do. When he gets into range, you're going to and when he turns and looks in your direction, if you see brow tines, hammer down. Right. And so, like, that was it. So I didn't really know what he was because I was primarily concerned, I mean, obviously with filming, it didn't pan out because I double tapped the freaking button, the record button. But it was also one of those things where it was like, I was also really concerned with making sure he was legal. So there was always a part of me that was more concerned with, are there 3 on one side? That was kind of my baseline. So when he's at 55 yards, I go, meh, and he turns and looks at me. I saw 1 brow tine. And that was it, because he was kind of quartering 2, so he didn't really like look at me. He just kind of picked his head up, and at that point it was all over with. So in the video, I'm walking up, and I tell everybody, I was like, I think it might be a 7-point. Like, you can hear me in the video trying to figure out what it was, and then when I got there, because my baseline was, is it legal? He just got bigger and bigger the further I walked up, But
that's always a good feeling.
Yeah, and like, my gut said when he was out there a ways, and like, I'm not trying to tell anybody here, like, I didn't do anything sketchy here. I knew he had 3 on one side, so I knew he was legal. But when he was out there, my immediate thought was, that's a shooter deer. Just because you can't have that much mass up there, odds are you're not going to have that much mass, and then only be like a forked horn.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But there was a small part of me that was like, as I'm climbing down, like, I really hope I didn't invent that third tine, like, I hope that wasn't a stick, so because I got all this on video, and my conscience would have ate me up alive, and I would have had to like self-report it. I guarantee you I would have self-reported it. And, but it turned out, because I had such low expectations. I think that's the key to being happy in Florida. If you're always thinking it's borderline illegal in Florida, then if it's bigger, then it's just icing on top.
Yeah, exactly. If you see a 30, 40, 50-inch buck in Florida come running in like he is the man. I mean, that's going to get anybody pumped up.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it does. It makes you think twice about it anyway. It's like, man, you know what? But yeah, that's awesome. Though I mean, it's crazy how that instinct just kind of kicks in. You know, once you realize it's legal, it's like, all right, you know, all attention off. You know, rarely does a situation happen to really get on top of a shooter buck. Not, I say rarely, but not near as often as it would in you know, anywhere north of here, of Florida. You don't really want to take any time, much less get worked up on it. You know, you realize it's legal, you're going to take it. That's it. You know, focus on everything else. Especially hunting tight corners like that. There's so much to work through, especially self-filming, getting the cameras and everything set up and pointed and zoomed in, zoomed out, whatever.
Well, and the crappiest thing about it as a self-filmer was I did everything right to have it on film.
Mm-hmm.
I just double tapped the freaking button, dude. And I was so, like, and I know there's going to be somebody who listens to this and is like, dude, there's more to it than self-filming. Listen, here's the deal. I don't care how you hunt so long as you're taking ethical shots and enjoying it. And for me, getting it on film is part of that enjoyment, right? Like,
exactly.
I started this off to document. One of the reasons I started toting the camera was to document these adventures because I have a damn good time doing it. And so for me, it's one of those situations where getting it on camera was it was a component of that hunt. So there was some disappointment there, but I have since.
Right, you want to be able to go back and relive that.
Oh my God, dude! I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong here, but in the summertime, my favorite thing to do when it's 110 degrees with 200% humidity and it's only May is like is to go and hit a playlist, crack a cold beer or Coca-Cola if that's your preference, and watch last year and relive it. Like that is
right.
Man, that's what it's all about, is being able to go back and see little details that you didn't realize.
Exactly.
Or maybe you forgot, you know?
Exactly. I still got hunts from years ago. I got a hunt, my very first self-filmed hunt that I'll go back and watch just for the heck of it. Just it was the first buck I shot on film. You know, not only just to relive the excitement and everything else. I mean, it's something that's exactly what you said. It's just what we do it for, and it's just kind of upsetting to you.
Yeah.
You know, as a person, you know, as a self-filmer, that you didn't catch it on film to be able to relive that.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. How far did your buck go when you shot him?
Not maybe 10, 20 yards at the most.
Oh, right on. I love that. That is the one thing I didn't realize I missed about rifle hunting. Exactly. They don't go very far. Actually, I thought I missed my buck. Have I told you this story?
I don't know. I don't think so.
So
if you did, I might have slipped my mind. But
yeah, so I'm shooting a 7mm Remington Magnum, which cracks. I mean, that is a loud gun.
That's what I shoot.
Yeah. Okay. So you know, and so my family on my mom's side of the family, they tend to go deaf. So for me, ear pro is really important, right? I mean, like I need to have it. So I've got these really nice like little headset around my neck. So all I have to do is pop it in. Well, I popped in my ear pro. And he went behind some bushes, and I had a little like panic attack, like, oh, I hope he's not going the opposite direction, which was stupid because he was coming in on a dime. So I pulled him out so that I could listen to see if I could hear him walking. Well, I never put him back in. So I'm sitting there, and the deer comes. He's like at 70 yards, 60 yards, 50 yards, and he kind of starts to broadside me. He's about to get downwind. So I pull the trigger, and it's offhand behind me from the saddle. Deer drops like a sack of potatoes. Gun kicks, but I didn't expect the gun to go off like as loud in my head. So like I flinched hard after the gun went off because I'm like, oh God, like that, you know, you're not hearing him run off. And so like I turn and I'm looking, there's no deer. And like I'm looking like, is he still standing there? So I rack another round. I'm like, oh my God, I missed this deer. Like where did he go? Like I'm looking in the horizon, like I'm looking for a tail flick. And I'm just like, I went, oh my God, I just missed all this. So I put the rifle on the gun hook, and then I start looking with the binoculars, and I catch some white in the palmettos. The palmettos were just high enough. I don't know what kind they are. Do you know what I'm talking about? The little swamp palmettos. They don't look like the stuff that's in the pine flats.
The ones that are just real short.
Yeah, they're real short, and they're almost like rounded. They don't cut you like the other palmettos do.
Yeah,
It's
I think
like
I know what you're
crab
talking about.
palmettos or something. They got a name. I don't know what they're called, but They were just tall enough that when he fell, he didn't move. Done. End of story.
Right.
Just dropped in his tracks. I see the white, and all of a sudden I start feeling like an idiot. I'm like, dude, you just shot a deer with a 150 grain projectile at 3,100 feet per second at 50 yards. Like, he's not going anywhere, you know? And turned out I heart shot this deer. So, I mean, he was, dead on impact. But
Really?
yeah.
So you heart shot him. Okay.
Oh, yeah, heart shot him. Yeah, it was he literally, when I tell people this, when I say he dropped dead, he didn't twitch, because when I got to the ground, you know how they do like sometimes they'll do like the leg kicking kind of situation as the they wane on to the afterlife. They would kick up the pine straw. He literally just fell on his side and laid down. It was done. It was the most amazing, it is everything you wanted when it comes to an animal not suffering. Obviously
Exactly.
started the season off shooting a deer and didn't recover it. This was like a really nice redemption to just have that deer stop and just be done.
Right.
No suffering.
Exactly. For sure. That's exactly how you'd want it.
Yep. Yeah.
For sure.
So
that's awesome.
I'd forgotten that because I hadn't shot a deer with a rifle since I was 16. So,
really?
No, I shot my first deer with a rifle and never picked up the rifle again.
Gotcha. That was in Georgia, right?
It was in Georgia. It was in southeast Georgia. It was actually, I got him on the wall right here behind me. Little 5-point, and it's a little 5-point. But the funny thing is, the same thing for him almost. It was a 30-06 at I don't know the actual figure, but I'd say like 30 yards. And I pulled the trigger on him. He hit the ground, but he didn't drop dead. But he hit the ground, did a donut on the ground, and then made one jump. And he disappeared into the palmettos. And because I was an idiot, I was 16 at the time, invincible in your youth, right?
Mm-hmm.
I shot the deer with a 30-06 carbine. The thing cracks. And so I can't hear anything, and I'm straining, and it's kind of drizzly rain. I'm like, oh my God, did you miss that deer? I never in my life envisioned this deer would hit the ground, get up, and make a leap into the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Got down, walked to there. There's no blood. I'm like, oh my God, I'm starting to like I'm coming unglued, right? And now you gotta let me paint the picture here for just a second. I'm totally hijacking this part of the podcast, and I apologize.
No, go ahead.
I'm 16. I've got Walmart Sportsman boots, which have like this like 2-inch lugged sole, right? Like no ankle support. I've got these like Walmart, back when Walmart made decent camo or sold decent camo, these like really nice insulated bibs, because it's kind of cold. It was like 40 degrees and this cold front was coming through. So my dad got this. This is what it was coveralls is what it was actually. And so I'm walking up and I'm trying to like blood trail, and I'm taking my time, and there is no blood, but you can clearly see where this deer ran or jumped. And I walk down the path, no blood, start to have a panic attack, double back, and then as I'm doubling back, I see white in the bushes. That joker made one leap. He was heart shot as well. And he jumped into the bushes. Dude, I set that gun down, ran sprinting. I set the gun down on the deer, sprinted back to the truck, which is like 400 yards away. Boy, let me tell you something. I was sucking wind when I got to that truck worse than I ever was in Colorado. That was the worst run of my entire life. It completely killed the adrenaline rush that I had going. Those big old boots, the sugar sand of southeast Georgia, and those coveralls. Dude, I drove up to my daddy dang near in my boxers and my socks. I was so freaking hot. I was sweating up a storm, and he's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I'm like, give me a second. I got to breathe. Because he heard the shot. He knew, he was coming to me, so... But totally. That's awesome. Little tangent there. I apologize.
Oh no, man. That's awesome. I like to hear deer stories, man.
Well, I mean, it's a tale, awesome. Right?
That's what we're here for. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So
that's awesome, though. I mean, that's how you want your first one to go down.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was just weird that I just never did it again afterwards, and I don't think it wasn't until I was older that I got swept into like the purest of archery. Like, I'm never gonna shoot a gun. I said this, and I'll just admit that I said it. I'm never shooting a deer with a gun again. You dumb crack. That was stupid. That was. I ate crow 10 years later.
Yeah. I mean, around here, you just don't get enough opportunities. I think you probably remember. I even said it this year that I was just so upset about how it happened earlier this season. I said, I'm just going to stick to the bow. But ended up just picking up the rifle anyways, and thankfully I did, because like I said, I mean, it happens.
It's one of those things where I got to where, so I shot my deer with the rifle, and then after that, the very next year, I started killing deer with my bow. And let's face it, it's a different level of adrenaline rush when a deer's at 15 yards and you shoot it with a bow. It's different. I'm not saying it's better. I won't say that anymore, but it is different. And for me, once I hit that, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to pursue this because this adrenaline rush was different. It saved my, I liked it. It just felt different. And I was killing like 3 to 4 deer a year with a bow in Southeast Georgia. Then I got here, and it's a world more difficult. Largely come gun season, you can't shoot a doe.
Right.
So you're hunting something that you're hoping during the rut is moving on, that's got a huge range where you got a bunch more people on a far more condensed area of ground. So it's already hard enough with deer hunting, and why making it harder by trying to get them within 30 yards? I don't know. It seemed knuckleheaded to me. If you like it, I'm not judging you either, but I went 4 or 5 years struggling with it, and I don't regret picking up the rifle once.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, man, I don't blame you at all.
Yeah.
Don't blame you.
So what's the rest of the year got for you? What can everybody expect from Heart of Florida's Outdoors?
Oh man.
Hofa.
Hofo.
Hofo, that's right, Hofo.
Well, I mean, as far as that was my last quota that I had in the books. I'm gonna try to get out and maybe do a little bit of traveling up there to maybe do some hunts. Depends on what we draw and can actually make happen before the season's over with. That might be the last. I mean, a lot of the areas around here, usually, the dog hunters are they're running dogs so heavy that it's kind of hard to get on top of anything. It's, I've done it a lot over the years. It's just more like if I could find some other areas to get into, maybe. Thought about going in from the river some. I don't know, looking into some of that, but I really don't know. It just depends on how. I mean, I'd like to get up there in some of them areas up there once they start getting to kicking. But
boy, you're making my editing difficult, ain't you?
Oh man. Like I said, I keep on forgetting about it. But,
hey, it ain't a big deal, man.
Okay, I'd like to get up there to North Florida.
There you go.
Like to get up there to North Florida and do a little bit of, because I know how the rut usually tends to be a lot later than ours. So it just depends on what we can make happen.
Yeah.
But once I get some time, I got a lot of stuff to edit and put up on the channel, on the YouTube channel and stuff. Other than that, man, I really don't know. It's going to be fishing season before too long.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's going to catch up with you quick. I think I keep putting in for the leftover tags, but I'm hoping you get one because I would love nothing more than, you and I've talked, and, based on how my season lays out, I may not even get to hunt some of the areas that you're wanting to up here, but I got trail cameras running, and if you get drawn, dude, my intel is your intel. You let me know when you're coming, and,
awesome.
We'll do what we have to get you on some deer. And honestly, for that matter, during the time you're talking about being up here, I will be off. I just probably won't be, necessarily hunting when you are. So if you kill a big one and you want some good B-roll and some help dragging it out, I can probably twist my old lady's arm enough to let me come out there and help you with that.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan. But yeah. Hopefully, we usually draw at least one a year, but the way this year's been going, we'll see. I haven't drawn anything yet, but maybe that'll be the one.
Yeah. Well, I think
so.
What hurts is people go on podcasts and just name drop places, and then everybody starts putting in for them.
Yeah. I'm not sure who that is.
Yeah, I mean those jerks. Gosh,
exactly.
Yeah. Glad we're not doing that.
Yes, sir. I mean, you got anything else going on this year? I mean, other than I think you're going up north a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that's...
Yeah, dude. I mean, I bought a Georgia tag this year, so I'll be hunting Georgia. My season ends, I think, on like the 10th or the 15th this year, of January. So I'm probably going to be putting in a fair amount of time up there. I've got a quota hunt coming up that I'm really excited about, that somebody has invested in me and given me some more, kind of gentle nudges in the right direction, which whenever somebody is willing to do that, it's always awesome to me. But it's one of those things where you spend $325 on a Georgia tag. you kind of want to get your money's worth out of it. And with the late season here, the best hunting here ending after the best hunting is up there, it's kind of hard to pry yourself away from it, especially when you put, preference points into quota hunts and then you get drawn for them. I had every intention of hunting up here a lot of the same places you are, and I probably will. It'll just be after, that Georgia season ends, because realistically the quality of deer changes, and it's either sex in Georgia because they have a stable population. So it's one of those things where it's a target rich environment. It's expensive. I keep going back to that. I still can't believe I spent $325 on it, but they're loaded with deer.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I told Chase he needs to have a daggum Georgia license next year, because a lot of these places. Here's the other thing. I'm gonna be honest with you. There is so much less hunting pressure in Georgia than there is in Florida. I don't care what anybody says, and I think it's because it's like a perceived pressure kind of situation. I think a lot of times down here, the places that are still hunt are either quota or they're weekend only, or it's a sliver of still hunting land, and as a result, everybody pours into those areas. Whereas in Georgia, they have their quota hunts, but they've got huge swaths of land that you can hunt any day of the friggin' week if you want to.
Right, just open public land areas.
Yeah, and as a result, you can kind of everybody. This is my biggest complaint of people up here is if you give all the still hunters only Friday through Sunday to hunt, and you give them a small piece of property, what do you expect is going to happen as a result?
Right,
it's not going to be productive.
Right.
So,
exactly.
I just kind of find myself gravitating further and further away from the area. But for you looking to extend your season, the places you're talking about hunting are loaded with nice deer.
Right.
When we get off the phone, I'll send you some really nice photos.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. I got some really nice 8 points. And did I send you the videos that I pulled off that trail camera the other day?
I don't think so, man.
I got a 10 on camera.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll drop you a pin. So, well, dude, nice. I appreciate you coming on, bantering with me here a little bit. It's always a good time, and hopefully we can share a deer camp here soon, or turkey camp, or something. We'll make something happen at the bare minimum.
Shoot, man.
But where can everybody? You. Yeah, absolutely. Where can everybody go to find you?
On YouTube is Heart of Florida, HART, and same on Instagram, Heart of Florida Outdoors.
Right on, man.
And Nick Chandler on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, if you got a spot that you want to give him to hunt late season, I think he'd be open to it.
Yeah, I'm definitely down to figuring some new areas out.
All right, buddy.
All right, man. Once again, I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.